Good evening and welcome to 60 Minutes. I'm Tara Brown. First, there was Harvey Weinstein and then Jeffrey Epstein. Two men so corrupted by their own power and money, they thought it entitled them to sexually abuse any woman or teenager they wanted. Now, one of the biggest icons of modelling stands similarly accused of being a sex fiend. You mightn't recognise his name, but for decades, Frenchman Gerald Marie was the super agent who decided or torpedoed the careers of supermodels. He even married one of the most famous of them all, Linda Evangelista. But our global investigation has uncovered more than a dozen former models with shocking accusations about the 70-year-old. They say he's a predator who ritually abused and raped young women, including minors in his care. Tonight, they're demanding Gerald Marie be held accountable for his depravity. Irresistibly drawn in by the bright lights and alluring promises, stunning girls parade the catwalk, recognised and celebrated for their beauty. But the glamour can be model thin.
Wake up, grab a brush and put a little makeup.
As all these former models discovered, making it into the coveted world of runways and magazine covers can be an ugly business. Hello ladies, welcome to 60 Minutes. Thank you for joining us. They've come from all over the world to find one another.
I'm in Boulder, Colorado.
I'm in London, UK.
Western Europe.
Oahu, Hawaii.
Brisbane, Australia.
Sharing the same shocking experiences of intimidation, sexual harassment and rape when they first started out as models in Paris.
I knew he had all the power, and I was a foreigner. I was all alone. I knew enough to know I didn't have a chance.
And they were also the victims, they allege, of the same man, the former head supremo of the elite modelling agency in Europe, Gerald Marie, the agent behind the biggest models in the world.
He attacked me in the middle of the night, and he raped me in the middle of the night.
I had no power. I had no voice. I said the word no.
Now, decades later, for the first time,
It was almost like this was his kingdom, this was his domain.
these women have come together for one reason: to make Gerald Marie accountable.
I have like little pieces of octopusy.
It is my hope that Gerald would experience what any predator should experience, and that is prosecution and incarceration.
I like the other thing.
We've uncovered hidden camera footage locked away for the last 20 years, which exposes Gerald Marie's lascivious appetite. With allegations too serious for French investigators to ignore, could time be up for the once untouchable Gerald Marie?
We're not 17 anymore. We're not children anymore. We're adults and we know what happened to us, and we do know who did it.
Mr. Marie, 60 Minutes Australia. 12 women have spoken about sexual assault.
No.
Is there anything you'd like to say, Mr. Marie?
It was the era of the supermodel, with French model impresario Gerald Marie almost single-handedly transforming top models into worldwide superstars. He even married one, Canadian beauty Linda Evangelista.
Being an agent in the 80s was so spectacular and exciting and glamorous. Money was everywhere, and we made lots of it.
As vice president of Elite Chicago in the 80s, Marie P. Anderson revelled in those heady days. And as part of the Elite company, she happily and unwittingly sent American models to Elite's Uber agent, Gerald Marie, and his star factory in Paris.
When you meet a lot of beautiful girls all day long, some pop out because they have something else to say.
or something else is happening in their eyes and in their way to express themselves too.
Gerald, then in his mid-30s, was at the top of his game, with an eye and, as he would be accused, a creepy penchant for young models.
Slowly but surely, I was getting phone calls from Europe, from the models complaining about Gerald Marie and telling me stories of either sexual harassment or sexual assault, and they would swear me to secrecy. So I never betrayed their trust.
How many girls did you get calls from?
My memory serves 4 to 5 girls.
In 1986, unaware of those calls, a gorgeous and vulnerable 17-year-old Carrie Otis was on her way to Paris. Deemed too exotic for the American market, the young runaway was sent to try out for the masterful Gerald Marie.
I had no idea what to find, what to expect. And really, when I was told I would be staying at the boss's apartment, you know, naively, I thought that might be a really good thing. Maybe somebody saw something special in me.
So when you first met Gerald Marie, what was your impression of him?
He was intense. He wasn't a warm, open, friendly guy. It was very businesslike. He was very cold. Yeah, I felt definitely inferior.
Carrie is now 51 and lives in Boulder, Colorado, with her husband and 2 daughters. Today, Paris is a long way away, except in her memory.
Let's be quiet for a moment.
She says she can never erase from her mind
Watch the shapes begin to fall.
the night Gerald Marie, still married to supermodel Linda Evangelista at the time,
Keep your eyes towards the
came into her room and attacked her.
I remember I came back after a full day of castings and was cold and felt terrible and went to bed. And it was at some point in the night that I woke up with Gerald on top of me and forcing himself on me. And I did my best to try to fight him off. And I remember a certain moment of completely giving up, of being completely terrified and completely ashamed.
And so immediately after that attack, what did he say to you?
Almost shaming, rather cruel, and no conversation. You know, there was nothing. There was, of course, no apology. It was just business as usual, moving right along.
But trapped by her circumstances, Carrie says business as usual now meant she was at Marie's toxic whim, forced as she was to stay in his apartment. How many times did he attack you?
You know, I don't know the number. I know that it was over months, and he held the cards. He held the power. You know, I didn't have a parent to call at that time. I didn't have money of my own. I didn't have, you know, a roof over my own head. Everything was dependent upon him and him giving it to me. And looking back, I was a perfect target for so many reasons.
I respected him. I was a bit afraid of him because he had so much power. He was the adult in the room, and I was the teenager.
Wendy Walsh was 18 when she first went to Paris to try modelling. It was 1980, and back then, Gerald Marie was the head of the Paris planning agency, which would later merge with Elite. As so many others attest, Gerald used a well-oiled ruse to get Wendy alone. Her female booker was asked to set up a meeting.
One day at the agency, Pamela slipped me a piece of paper with an address on it and said, "Gerald wants to see you. Bring your portfolio. He wants to talk to you tonight at his apartment."
Like Carrie, Wendy's account of what happened at that so-called meeting is harrowing.
He grabbed my breast and he grabbed my hips and he said, I like this, I like this. He took my hand and he took me into a little bedroom off the kitchen and he laid me on the bed and I was frozen. I managed to say, I'm not on the pill. And he laughed and he said, oh, really? I'm not on the pill either. And then so quickly, he turned me over. I felt him sliding my jeans down and I'm like, what the heck? I turned and looked over my shoulder and said, no. And he spit in his hand, put the saliva on his penis, and raped me anally. And I didn't tell anybody about this for nearly 40 years.
It must be very difficult for you to retell it again now. What made you stay silent for so long?
I felt stupid. I felt ashamed.
While these alleged attacks happened behind closed doors, by 1998, rumours of abuse were rife, prompting an undercover team of journalists to investigate. What they recorded has been buried for the last 20 years.
That tape is absolutely crucial evidence.
This is it, the Elite Model Look Contest, the biggest, most prestigious of its kind.
It was 1998, and a groundbreaking investigation was underway into rumours of sexual abuse and rape of young models by one of the modelling agency greats, the president of Paris Elite, Gérald Marie.
No one had come forward officially, but I had been told by people in the industry that he did abuse young women and teenage girls.
Freelance journalist Lisa Brinkworth took her story to the BBC and eminent documentary maker Donal McIntyre. Their ambition was to uncover the suspected exploitation behind the glamour, industry-wide. So, for a year, Lisa went undercover as a model and Donal as a fashion photographer.
Given me access to photographing Naomi Campbell, Kate Moss, some of the worst photographs ever taken of some of the most beautiful women in the world. And I just blagged my way in and told a few tall stories. And next thing I knew, I was in the company of some of the most powerful and, I would say, dangerous men in the industry.
This is Mac, my friend Mac from Ireland. Pleasure. Ciao.
Very quickly, Donal, going under the name of Mac McIntyre, got very close to Gérald Marie.
I like the other things, you know what I mean?
Gérald Marie, it was quite clear that sex was on the agenda all the time.
Oh my man, I love you so.
These guys, their average night out was either, if they're not with their models, young and old, on the table, drinking, having cocaine, they're going to brothels and having cocaine or drugs or doing whatever else they do. I have a little problem here, right? These guys were in loco parentis. They're in the role of a parent.
We keep only 15 girls.
This is the first time this undercover footage has been seen in 20 years. A legal case burying it for the past 2 decades. Here, Gérald is leeringly referring to an Elite Look of the Year contest, which saw girls as young as 13 and 14 compete to win a modelling contract. but it was Gerald's plans for the most beautiful of them that was stomach-turning.
In Nice, I come with a big boat. We just get off the boat to go and look at the girls, and this and that, and you, I always have a couple of friends in there, you know, the girls, they bring them. Then we are discreet, no paparazzi.
We witnessed a culture of sex. We heard them talk about it in the most graphic terms. We talked about the Elite Model Look contest in Nice as an opportunity for him to enjoy the company, sexual company, of underage girls. It was quite clear.
No parents.
No
parents in the boat or chaperones.
Gerald Marie says, yes, they're words, they're embarrassing words, but that's all they are. It was like locker room talk, boys talk. Do you accept that as a defence?
I don't accept that at all. And I think the testimony of the women in and around that world kind of paints a very different interpretation of that.
While Donal was shocked by what he saw and heard, never did the undercover team expect that one of their own would become one of Gerald Marie's alleged victims.
I didn't want to be a victim. I wanted to be the journalist exposing this guy. So that was really, it was very traumatic.
Playing the role of model, Lisa Brinkworth managed to snag an invitation to one of Marie's regular dinners. Night after night, young models from the agency were required to dine with Marie and his businessman friends.
The conversation at the table was incredibly offensive to these young girls. Really bad language, lots of sexual innuendo.
Then Gerald Marie turned his attention to Lisa.
Just you and I alone. I know we're going to have a great time and we're going to feel great.
And then in front of the table of people offered to pay Lisa for sex.
I still didn't feel afraid. All I thought was, I'm getting all of this on camera. And, you know, he's exactly the person that we'd been told he was. And this is all really good evidence for us.
But what happened next was not caught on tape, with Lisa's hidden camera accidentally knocked out of the way. Despite the public setting, Lisa says Gerald unexpectedly and shockingly jumped her.
Completely out of the blue, he walked over to me, straddled me on my chair, pinned me down to the chair. I couldn't move, and I could feel he had an erection, and he was thrusting himself into my abdomen, just simulating sex. It was the most horrific thing, and I couldn't get him off me, and I was absolutely terrified. I mean, I thought I was going to be raped, and the worst thing about this was that's the thing that gets me every time, actually, where all these men sat around laughing. Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry. That was almost the worst part of it. No one helped me. And it was so normal. It was so normal to them.
Can you tell me what you witnessed in regards to his behaviour towards Lisa?
I saw him mount Lisa. We were in a nightclub, brothel, and I saw him mount Lisa and thrust into her.
I didn't want the assault included in our programme.
Why didn't you want that included in the BBC documentary?
There was a lot of shame. I felt really ashamed. I didn't tell my family, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't want my parents seeing this. I didn't tell anybody.
Was your intention to actually report the assault?
I wanted to, but in that room that night, I was directed not to report it at the time because it would cut short our investigation. And in my shock and in my trauma, I went along with that.
How do you now view the direction that you were given not to report this to police, given what the subject matter was of your documentary?
Yeah. Now I realise that actually that would have been crucial. That should have happened. It should have been reported.
Gerald Marie would later deny the assault, But in 1999, the BBC ran its expose of the fashion industry, with Gerald Marie's bad behaviour around young models front and centre.
11:30.
11:30. I'll see you for 11:30. Va bene.
The worldwide condemnation was damning, and the reign of Gerald Marie was judged to be over. But not for long.
The industry, didn't just forgive him. They didn't convict him. They gave him more business, and he continued to make millions over the next 2 decades.
Paris is the fashion capital of the world, the epitome of glamour, success and power. But in 1999, the BBC uncovered its sleazy side, broadcasting a year-long investigation into the modelling industry.
I have little pieces of octopusy.
Posing as a fashion photographer, journalist Donal McIntyre soon had his biggest catch in Gerald Marie,
Mac, my friend Mac from Ireland.
the head of the elite modelling agency in Paris, bragging about his plans to have sex with underage models.
Then we are discreet, no paparazzi.
There were headlines across the world, but when you hear it and when you see it from the mouth of one of the most powerful men in the industry, then I think that presents a truly shocking picture of fashion and the men in fashion to the world.
The reaction was immediate. The disgraced Gerald Marie was suspended from his job at Elite, the biggest modelling agency in the world. It was a significant and prized scalp.
It was quite clear that Gerald Marie was at the top of the totem pole. He was one of the most powerful and dangerous perpetrators of abuse. That was the allegation.
But very quickly, Elite went on the attack, suing the BBC for libel and dishonest editing, seeking millions in damages. Donal concedes producers made one questionable edit, where a model's comments from 2 interviews were sliced together to make it look like the one interview. The BBC was accused of unethical editing, for which it apologised. Was that a tactic used to paint Gerald Marie in a certain negative light?
No, I think the specific edit, which the BBC were, I think, overly embarrassed by, didn't change the truth of it. It went nowhere to the truth of what had happened.
Initially, the BBC chose to fight Elite's legal claim, relying on whistleblower Omar Hafouche, an executive from within Elite itself, to prove the documentary had revealed the truth.
It changed my life. When I decided to tell the truth to the BBC, I lived 3 of the worst years of my life after that.
Omar Hafouche is an intriguing character, a trained concert pianist and wealthy businessman with a seemingly unshakable honest streak. He was the licensee of the Elite Look of the Year contest in Ukraine, but was appalled by Gerald Marie's treatment of the young contestants.
My first impression about him was that he's a sexual predator. He used to touch the girls. He used to show them that he's the one who decides that if they are nice to him, they can have a career, they can win the contest also. And I said to the girl that it's not normal. You're not obliged to sleep with anybody.
Did you ever confront Gerald Marie about his behaviour?
Of course, I confront Gerald Marie about his behavior several times. He was not afraid. He was like, why, you're homosexual? He was saying that. I said, no, I'm not homosexual. You don't like girls? Of course I do, but these girls, their family, they send them to us because they trust us.
As a star witness for the BBC, Omar claims the pressure on him became personal and menacing. So much so, the BBC supplied him with bodyguards. Did Gerald Marie ever threaten you?
Gerald Marie, he treated me twice, once in a restaurant and in Paris, and second time it was over the phone when he told me that I'm finished and something like that.
Just for clarification, did Gerald Marie ever threaten your life?
Yes, Gerald Marie threatened my life.
That was very clear to you.
It was very clear.
Omar Hafoush says he was only ever describing what others had also observed or overheard. Another former insider, Marie P. Anderson, once vice president of Elite Chicago, left the company in disgust in 1990. It was on hearing a heated conversation between two female executives, Gerald Marie and the founder of Elite, John Casablancas. The women were trying to protect the youngest of their models.
I'm now hearing the women begging the men to stop sleeping with the 13 and 14-year-olds. And Gerald, with his Paris accent, says, girls, we are men, we have our needs. And John's response was, come on, stop being so puritanical. It's no big deal. And I was so stunned listening to that conversation, I had to get up and leave. And I quit Elite because I didn't want to be part of that organization. If this is the culture that I have to work within inside of an agency, I don't want to be part of an agency. So I quit the business. Boom.
It's like a baker who doesn't eat the cake. It's not be stupid.
It was that toxic culture that freelance journalists Donald McIntyre and Lisa Brinkworth exposed so extensively in their documentary. But ultimately, the BBC backed down, apologised for its editing error, and signed an agreement to never rerun the footage. And in doing so, sidestepped a potentially massive payout.
With the settlement, it was business as usual after that.
The decision to settle was a blow and betrayal. So then when Elite decided to sue, how do you view the BBC's response?
There wasn't a single inaccuracy in the entire documentary. The footage was robust, it was fine. You have got a few inappropriate and poor edits, acknowledge that on one side, nothing which went to the truth of the investigation whatsoever, and you've got these predatory males admitting what they've done, telling the world this is their culture, this is their ethos, this is the world they operate in when they look after young models. No contest.
Jean-Marie was fired, wasn't he? And then he was reinstated with a settlement.
Yeah, things settled down.
Yeah.
Gerald Marie got his job back and with it, his glamorous life. But now, 2 decades on, French prosecutors have launched a criminal investigation into allegations of rape, child rape, and sexual assault. And Marie may not get a second chance. Not if former top model Carrie Otis, his victim and greatest pursuer, gets her way.
It's really important in this world that criminals, that rapists, that, sex offenders don't keep getting away just because of their position of power.
Paris lawyer Anne-Claire Lejeune has a big job ahead. She carries the hopes of women from all over the world, desperate for justice. They have claimed to an active criminal investigation in France they were the sexual assault victims of former modelling agent great Gerald Marie. Can you tell me how many women do you represent in this investigation into Gerald Marie?
Well, I'm representing 14 women, but I have been contacted by some other women. They are not ready to speak up, not yet.
How many extra women are talking to you privately?
I can say more or less 12.
On top of the 14 you're representing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you believe the women?
Of course I do. Of course I do. When you cross-check the deposition and the story of every woman, you can see, the same details, the same modus operandi. It's real. We have no doubt about that.
While the 1999 BBC documentary exposed Gerald Marie's sleazy behaviour, the women he's accused of attacking were then too terrified to talk. To see you here today is extraordinary, does it? Today, they have found their voice, and their allegations chillingly mirror each other's. All say they were attacked by Gerald. 6 say they were raped.
I was 20, and I'd only had one boyfriend before. I was extremely naive, and I was trusting.
For Jill Dodd, it was 40 years ago, and it started with Gerald Marie kissing her after a night out with others.
I felt comfortable with him. I didn't know that I should be worried. And then he kissed me again, and then he physically grabbed me and flipped me over onto my hands and knees and raped me from behind violently. And I was screaming to stop and no, and I couldn't get away.
The sudden and unexpected nature of the attack on Jill is something all these women describe. Shauna, if I can go to you, you were 15, I think, when you met Gerald Marie.
I was flown to Paris for the summer, and the agent that met with my family said that there would be a chaperone in an apartment and that I would be taken care of. There would be nothing to worry about.
But like all the former models here, at the time, the teenage Shauna Lee was required to attend almost nightly industry parties with Gerald and his business friends. At the end of one such night, Gerald offered to drive Shauna to her apartment. Instead, he took her to his.
I just started yelling at him and telling him that he was going the wrong way and that wasn't the direction of my apartment. And he just didn't listen. And then we got to his apartment and he just kind of pounced on me and he was on top of me and then his tongue was in my mouth and I just didn't know what to do. I just froze. I didn't have any experience with anyone. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's just really painful to talk about. I told a model in the apartment. And he brought me into his office and he called me out on the rape and he said, "What are you going to do? Go home and flip burgers?" It was like a horrible, humiliating experience. I just felt so violated. And, he was older than my father at the time. I was 15. He was like 42 years old. I never saw it coming.
So he rapes you and then he threatens you with your career if you dare tell anyone.
Yeah, basically. He was laughing about it. Like he thought it was a joke.
Oh my gosh. First of all, thank you, Shauna, for sharing your story because it was the first time I heard it and it breaks my heart.
In 1990, Swedish model Ebba Karlsson was 20 when she was called into Gerald Marie's office.
And he pulled out all these portfolios with all the beautiful women. And some of them were Swedish. And he said, "Do you know who these women are?" And I'm like, "Well, yes, of course, they're famous." And as he said, "Do you know what they did to earn 6 figures?" And as he did that, he shoved his hand up my skirt into my vagina with his hand. And I felt like somebody just chopped my head off because I was so shocked. I just froze and I pulled away and I'm like, I didn't know what to do, how to react. And I went out of the office and I just sat outside the office on the street on a bench and cried.
E.J. Moran's account is strikingly familiar. Ordered to attend dinner and then, given some work-related excuse, taken back to Gerald's apartment.
I didn't want to go to his apartment at all, but he was my boss. Once I got upstairs, he basically threw me on the bed and put his hand over my face and held me down and started calling me all kinds of names in a low, horrible voice. And he raped me violently, and he was horrible. I knew I couldn't report it. I knew he had all the power. And I was a foreigner. I was all alone. I didn't speak very much French. I was in his apartment. I knew enough to know I didn't have a chance.
On her first night in Paris, Paula Thomas, 17 at the time, was asleep when Gerald Marie, the boss she'd not yet met, crept into her apartment.
In the middle of the night, I woke up to a man sitting on top of me. The bed sheets were pulled down, and I heard him say to me, "Welcome to Paris, Paula, it's Gerald." I was in complete shock, obviously. I'd just woken up from sleep, and I'd never met Gerald before. He did actually stop, and he did actually leave the room. But at that point, I was just shaking and didn't really know what to do or what to say.
A few weeks in, another attack, this time in Gerald's office.
He pressed himself up against me and he pushed me up against the filing cabinet, and he had an erection. And he basically said, if you want to be paid, you're going to have sex with me. And I pushed him off and left the building as quickly as I could.
Laurie Marsden was told she had an enormous future as a model. Did anyone warn you that you may also become prey in this world?
No, I went into it very wide-eyed and just, happy.
But Laurie, now a psychologist based in Brisbane, felt the full brunt of saying no to Gerald Marie.
It all happened very quickly, but he just pushed me through a door, into another room, onto a bed, and he landed on top of me. And he's grabbing my breasts and he was pulling up my skirt. And then I realized that I was in big trouble, that I was going to get raped. So, I started struggling more and more and shouting at him to stop.
Laurie says Gerald was deaf to her pleas, but she somehow managed to get out from under him and run from the room. In retribution, Gerald cancelled Laurie's next 3 cover shoots for the highly sought-after Elle magazine, a message her career at the elite modelling agency was now dead.
He got off the phone, he hung up, and he turned to me and he said, "They're cancelled." And I said, "What's cancelled?" And he said, "Your L trips." And I said, "Well, which one?" And he said, "All of them." So I, that was sort of like the second punch, It was like there was the attack, and then there was this sort of sabotaging me in my career. And that was actually the point where I was overwhelmed.
Laurie went on to have a great career with another agency, but it was a pattern of payback that Gerald seemed to use on those who rejected or confronted him. And it wasn't just against women. A former elite insider, Omar Hafoush, suffered years of untruthful attacks on his reputation for daring to speak out against Gerald Marie, for which he successfully sued Marie. Omar has now met with French prosecutors to support the 14 former models who accuse Gerald Marie of sexual assault and rape.
I am talking for only one reason. First, I want the truth to be known. I want that everybody believe these girls because I saw what was going on, and because I want these girls to know that they are not alone.
The French investigation was launched in September last year in response to written allegations made by the women in this story. But their greatest legal challenge is that the statute of limitations, the 20 years in which to make a complaint to the courts, has expired. For lawyer Anne-Claire Lejeune, it's therefore critical the more recent victims she has spoken to come forward. Well, the prosecutor has been quoted as saying that it is important to investigate so that there are no forgotten victims. You must find that very encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. And, then we need all the victims to to come forward. It's very hard to convince them to speak up.
Unable to have charges brought against Gerald Marie because of the length of time that has passed, these women will be considered vital witnesses in the current criminal investigation. But their determination in facing down one of the most powerful players in the industry and demanding change industry-wide cannot be underestimated. For you personally, to take the testimonials of these women, what has that been like for you to see them now come together like this and put their names and their faces to this fight for justice?
They are very courageous. It's an amazing work, and I know it's not easy, but yeah, it's because of her that we can get people convicted.
So they're heroes to you?
Yeah, they are heroes, absolutely.
We set the world on fire.
And now, this never-before-seen videotape
I was trying to push him off, I couldn't.
Could be the legal breakthrough that could change everything.
And he had an erection, he was pushing it into me and thrusting, and it was just absolutely horrific. At the time I was in shock. I came back here, I felt absolutely violated. And I just burst, I didn't want to, but I burst into tears. It was a bit unprofessional, but I did.
This footage has never been seen before. Lisa Brinkworth made this recording in the moments immediately after she says she was sexually assaulted in 1999.
Just all of a sudden, he just came over and he was on top of me, he straddled me, pushed himself and pinned me to the chair. And
Lisa alleges her attacker was big-time model agent Gerald Marie, who was unaware that she was an undercover freelance journalist posing as a model.
And it was just absolutely horrific. It was the nearest thing I've ever experienced to rape.
Lisa was investigating Marie for a BBC documentary after being tipped off by models that he was a serial sex abuser. Never did she expect to be one of his alleged victims. Nor did she ever expect to see this tape again, buried as it was by the BBC. The BBC locked away the recording when it settled a libel suit brought by the elite modelling agency.
What really hit home was that there was a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old on the table.
Unbelievably, the tape resurfaced when the BBC inadvertently gave it to another journalist in early 2019.
So that was an absolute shock to me to hear a woman who I'd never met, didn't know, just telling me about what she'd just witnessed on this tape.
The shock was made greater by the fact, despite many requests, the BBC won't give Lisa the tape. Citing legal reasons, it refuses to release it without her signing a gag order.
That tape immediately following the assault is absolutely crucial evidence.
We've obtained the vision from a confidential source, and according to lawyer Anne-Claire Lejeune, the tape could prove the turning point in the case against Gerald Marie. Because it has been hidden away for so long, Lisa was denied the opportunity to use it as evidence of Marie's alleged assault before the statute of limitations was reached. It's hoped, because of that lost opportunity, the legal time limit cannot apply to Lisa. If you can convince the prosecutor and the courts that the statute of limitations needed to be paused in Lisa's case, what does that do for your case?
It means that Gerald Marie could be officially charged for sexual assault, so it will be a great victory, of course. Lisa Brinkworth could probably get justice.
And that means more than ever before, the legal net seems to be closing in on Gerald Marie. At 70, Gerald lives on the Spanish island of Ibiza, the holiday destination of the rich and famous. It's here that he has a luxurious clifftop home. And far away from the current French investigation, he lunches by the beach most days, and lives a lavish life built off the back of the lucrative modelling industry.
Still a very active businessman, still enjoying the vast wealth and fruits of his trade, and until very recently anyway, still actively involved in the fashion industry.
Still there 16. Like, yeah, but it depends, 16 years, 16 and 16.
Much to the disappointment of the documentary Undercover team, Donal McIntyre and Lisa Brinkworth, Gerald Marie continued to work for Elite Europe until 2011. And then We Model Management until a year ago.
He brazened it out. I mean, what I couldn't understand
I
is that...
continued working with models all these years.
Gerald Marie has always denied all of the allegations of sexual assault and rape, and was vindicated when the BBC backed down and settled the libel claim brought against them by Elite. But the allegations won't go away.
I watched as girls came in and slept with him and then were passed around middle-aged men.
Everybody could see what he was doing. Everybody could see that he was abusing his power.
To former model Carrie Otis, who says Marie raped her multiple times when she was 17, he represents the worst of the industry.
What's been normalized is horrific. And at this point, we say it is like the Wild West. The modeling industry is totally unregulated, despite the fact we have decades of allegations and decades of complaints. And it's time. There's a collective rising up, and people want to tell their stories, and they want real lasting change.
Our repeated requests for an interview with Gerald have been ignored. Agreeing to put the allegations directly to Gerald on our behalf, and unrestricted by COVID travel bans...
Mr. Marie. Donal McIntyre, 60 Minutes Australia.
Donal McIntyre travelled to Ibiza to confront the man he hasn't seen in 20 years.
Thank you very much, or we call the police.
Mr. Marie, call the police. Do you realise the French prosecutors have got 14 women charging you, making allegations for assault and sexual assault? Mr. Marie, 6 women are accusing you of rape. You have anything to say?
It appears Gerald Marie does not remember Donal, and isn't bothered in the slightest by the allegations against him, nor the French criminal investigation.
It's enough.
It's not enough.
Gee, it's enough.
Say this to the women who claim he's raped and sexually assaulted. Is this not a problem to you?
Please leave us alone.
No,
he even feels compelled to make fun of McIntyre about what he's wearing.
You're dressed like a priest, but it doesn't,
Mr. Marie, it's no time for joking. This is no laughing matter.
Completely unfazed, Gerald continues eating and mocking Donal.
Have a beautiful day. Enjoy. You do it. Yeah, please. Beautiful night too. Hallelujah.
And we leave.
You have nothing better to do, huh?
But Gerald Marie may not so easily ignore the women he is accused of hurting. They plan to travel, COVID permitting, to Paris to give their testimonies in person to the prosecutor so the investigation can progress.
Through the panic till I'm gathered safely in.
They believe that there are others out there who should do the same.
And dance me to the end of love.
All your stories have been incredibly compelling, and yet Gerald Marie continues to deny that he harassed you or raped you or hurt you or ended your careers. He denies it. He says it's rubbish. What do you say to him?
We'll see about that. We'll see about that. We're not 17 anymore. We're not children anymore. We're adults and we know what happened to us. So we'll see you in court.
I understand how scary it is to come forward. We are stronger in numbers, and there are other women that are available to support women that are coming forward for the first time. So I think anything is possible. I don't think this show is over.
Hello, I'm Tara Brown. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minutes, segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.